Okay, good morning. My name is Tim Cavanagh, Cavanagh from Cavanagh Law Group in Chicago. Two down from me is Stacy Cavanagh, my partner and wife, and to my left, Mike Sorich, Sorich, who's a partner at Cavanagh Law Group. Wendy Cook, Cook, to my left, and Jeff Rogers. They're both parents of two of the boys that were seriously injured. So last evening, we filed electronically a lawsuit in the state court in Indiana, Kosciuszko County. The case is pending in front of Judge Chris Kaler, and that's a civil case. It's a 3-count lawsuit for 18 bus passengers that were struck on November 12th by the drunk driver driven by Mr. Ramos, who was employed by N&V Trucking and B&W. It's a 3-count lawsuit, and we are going to serve these defendants promptly and engage in discovery and find out why this man, who had a prior criminal conviction for rape and had violated federal motor carrier safety regulations in Indiana, was driving. What responsible trucking company would allow this man to drive? We're going to find answers to that. There's a criminal case pending as well, and we know that this man has, through his attorneys, is seeking to get his bond reduced. The state was going to file a response to a motion. I think it's due in the next coming days. Mike Sorich, who's a former state's attorney, can speak to that issue. But we, the attorneys and the family members, are going to be in court on January 9th next year at 9 a.m. To show our support for the prosecutor and the charges against this man. We don't think he should get his bond reduced. We don't think he should be released from prison. I know Jeff is going to speak. His son was seriously injured in the crash. Jeff?
Yeah, so my name's Jeff Rogers. I am one of the coach.
Jeff, do you need him to move over to the mics? Are you picking up the audio?
We need them to move the mics.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so my name's Jeff Rogers. I am one of the coaches with the varsity program at St. Ignatius. Obviously, the accident happened with our junior varsity team. So my role is as a coach, but also as a parent with this situation. So my son Jack was on the bus and sustained some injuries to his pelvis and unfortunately a skull fracture and a number of broken ribs in the accident. He's coming along, I guess, just like the rest of his teammates. It's a day-by-day process. We're obviously, it's a very close-knit community at St. Ignatius, of course, and overall the hockey community is one like no other, and it's a very close-knit community. Support from a number of the other high school hockey programs, youth programs. We've heard from the Chicago Blackhawks. We've heard from the Chicago White Sox. We've just a tremendous outpouring of support for these boys. And we're also very thankful to have the Cavanagh Law Group representing us and supporting us. And we're just looking for answers. We obviously are troubled by the past of this driver, and none of our boys should have been, or our coaches should have been, put in this situation, just representing their school, representing their team for a hockey tournament, and now they're in this situation. So we're looking for answers, and because we want him obviously off the road, and we want to make sure that this sort of thing never happens to any other school, any other team, any other group of young men or women that have to ever go through something like this.
And I think I made let me make a quick correction. I think I mispronounced the defendant's name. It's Victor Santos. I might have said Ramos there, so let me make that correction.
You can move the mic down to them.
That night will never be something that any of us will ever forget. A number of us sitting here were at the tournament. We were at a restaurant about 50 minutes from our boys when the phone calls started to come in, and people were standing up screaming, "The bus has rolled over, the bus has rolled over," and we all just ran to the car. None of the boys answered their phones. There was 4 moms in the car with me. For 50 minutes, we tried to figure out if these boys were alive. 2 of the boys were able to call their moms because some bystanders came and gave them their phones. And the first thing we heard about the accident was, "Mom, it is really bad. It's really bad." And to hear that come from a 14 or 15-year-old boy was so hard to hear. Myself and another mom did not know if our boys were alive until about 45 minutes into that car ride, and all we knew at that point was that they had been taken to a hospital. While we're in the hospital, waiting to see where our boys were, because they took the more serious injured boys to another hospital, we're, trying to get information from the front staff. The police bring in the defendant. And that face, when I walked into this room, is the exact face we all saw. He was in handcuffs. He walked through a hysterical group of parents without a look of emotion on his face. We didn't know who he was at the time, but we were in a small town. We assumed that's who it was. And just knowing after the fact what his record was, what his alcohol level was, and then to see the lack of emotion to walk into a group like that is something that someone has to be held accountable for. When I saw my son finally in the hospital, he grew up with Jack playing hockey together. They've known each other for a number of years. The first thing he said to me was, "Is Jack okay, Mom? I don't think Jack is going to live. He's really bad, Mom." He kept screaming, and I was right by him. Well, we didn't know until we saw this picture over here today how close they really were to each other. And I just kept telling my son, the fact that Jack is screaming is good because that means he's alive and he's feeling pain. So my son has 2 fractured bones in his face, a concussion. He also suffered a seizure on the bus. He was the last one on the bus to be taken off. When the coach found him, he was having a seizure. We don't know how long that was going on for. But I want him to see that we are trying to hold someone accountable for what they're going to go through. Because these boys, they're tough hockey players. They're trying to be tough, but they are emotionally rocked by this. And as we move further, my concern for them, the physical part is going to get better. But even without being able to play hockey, which is such a part of who they are, it's just going to affect them even more emotionally.
Wendy, could you spell your name? We can get your name for everybody.
I'm sorry, Wendy Cook, Cook, and my son is Alex.
And I don't know if you were listening, but this picture here is of both Jeff and Wendy's son in the aftermath of the accident. And we can open up for questions now, and other parents can speak as well.
so much for talking with us and sharing that. Can you talk a little bit about how Alex emotionally is coping? Are his physical injuries better, and Jack as well? How they're coping with this emotionally and the teammates?
I mean, Alex is, his injuries are not severe. I would say, you know, his face is healing. His concussion does not seem to be getting better. In fact, yesterday was the worst day he's had since the accident happened. So he struggles to get through a day of school. I think coming off the Thanksgiving break was a really long, hard day for him yesterday. You can see a change in his moodiness. You see, you know, we saw changes just, you know, one of the harder things for me was seeing boys who were these tough boys hug each other and tell each other they love each other for days after the accident. And all they wanted to do was be together. And we made a point of any of the boys that could get together were together for like the first 3 or 4 days every day after the accident. You know, it's hard to tell with boys, and they, you know, we're trying to figure out as a group how we can help them. And I think right now the boys leaning on each other has helped. And Jack getting out of the hospital was a huge boost for the boys to be able to see him for the first time. So it's just going to take some time until these boys are all back together again and on the ice again before the healing really will begin.
Do you think they will get back to playing hockey? Are some of them now?
Yes, they are. Not immediately, but within a few days, they held a practice for any boys that could skate. The other boys they ordered pizza. They hang out and just watch the group. So that's part of their togetherness. I think there's maybe 9 boys that are skating, but I don't know that number for sure. So they definitely want to get back on the ice. Alex said to me a couple days ago, because he definitely would want me to say that they were in number 1 spot before the accident. But he said to me, Mom, you know, when we get back out there, I think we may win the whole thing because we're going to have a tighter bond than any other team has ever had. It's not the way you want to get a bond, but to me, the fact that they can think that way is great.
Can you talk a little bit about Jack and his, I don't think he was switch or anything,
Yeah.
nice, but you know, what it's like to be out of the hospital and what his recovery was like.
Yeah, so Jack's dealing with it probably just most like the rest of his teammates are. It's a day-by-day process. He'll have a long road to recovery, months to recover. I think, like Wendy said, the thing about these boys is going through this together, they just want to be with each other. And, it says a lot about them that, they just want to be, of course, they all want to be back on the ice with each other, and that brings them comfort. But they just want to be back with their teammates. They want to be back in school. They want to be back with their classmates. As I think I mentioned earlier, the St. Ignatius community has been just unbelievable, and as has the hockey community. I think it's touched a number of people because I think that a lot of these hockey parents and even parents and students from other sports, they can sort of relate to this possibly happening to them. So that's why I think it's so important that we hold this gentleman accountable for what he did.
Well, you said your son's getting better, which is great news. Tell me about your concerns long-term, both emotionally and physical, and how that plays into this action you're taking.
Yeah, we don't really know, to be honest. My son's he's a freshman in high school, so just trying to, he's growing as a young man, and so it's difficult to kind of anticipate that. So We're hopeful he's going to be fine. He's going to make a full recovery, but yeah, that's one area that you're really not too sure about. Wendy had mentioned, boys are a bit different. They hold things inside. So, but yeah, we're hopeful he'll make a full recovery.
Would any of the other parents like to step up and say anything?
Well, as Jeff said,
Yeah, you want me to switch with
Here,
her?
I'll put Eileen.
Okay.
Go ahead.
my name's Eileen Murphy, Murphy, and I just wanted to echo what Jeff said. I think as a child, everyone's been on a school bus. As a parent, you've sent your kids on field trips, you've sent them to tournaments. You think that your child is going to be safe. And in our case, our kids were on a school bus with the most amazing coaching staff in a small town in Indiana, and we just assumed that they were going to be safe. And unfortunately, this happened. And as Wendy said, there needs to be accountability in this. That man should never have been able to drive a semi-truck and hit our school bus, particularly when they were so close to getting to their destination.
Could you give your name and spelling?
Sure, Eileen, Eileen, Murphy, Murphy.
And your son?
Emmett, Emmett.
When you talk about that accountability, what does that look like for you?
I would never want to see that man out of jail, nor would I ever want to see him behind the wheel of any vehicle again.
I think I saw most students have returned to class, but some still haven't. Is that because emotional or physical, or what is that looking like returning to school for a lot of these students?
I think it's a combination of the physical injuries. Speak for my son. Yeah, he's in a wheelchair and needs to use crutches to get around. So that's what we're dealing with him getting back. And but then also I think it's the mental aspect as well, where the school, as many schools are leading into final exams right now, and all these boys have been out of school, so that weighs on them mentally as well. They just want to be back and back in their curriculum and not too far behind. So I think that weighs on them as well.
There's still one child in the hospital. Does anybody know, can anyone update us on how he's doing and what his road to recovery looks like? I don't think his parents are here, correct? But can you talk about that?
Correct. Yeah, so there is one more teammate on the team that is back in Chicago, but yeah, he's receiving some care here in the area, and a number of our boys have been with him and spend a lot of time with him just recently. I know I'm heading over there after this, and but he's coming along. But yeah, it's going to be a long process for him as well.
Can either of the attorneys just talk a little bit? You said there's 3 counts, and it's against the company.
Yeah.
Us, the company. Can you just talk about what you're looking for, what you're seeking, just in your words, kind of describe the lawsuit briefly?
Yeah, so the lawsuit is against the truck driver and NNV Trucking, which is a New Jersey trucking company, and B&W. There's multiple B&W entities. They're a Michigan company that does business in the Midwest. So we believe that the driver was an employee or agent of every one of those trucking companies. You can see on the photographs that NNV had their logo on the tractor with the DOT number from the Department of Transportation, and B&W is on the trailer. So those companies would have had a responsibility based on federal law and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations to place a safe truck driver in the truck. They did not do that. We want to know why. Because this man is a criminal with a criminal record, and that's just what we know from reporting. We're going to find out full details of his past, and we're going to do the discovery we need and take the depositions and subpoena documents and get to the bottom of why this has happened, and we will be prepared to take this to trial in Indiana.
Would any of the other parents like to talk about the injuries or the recovery? I spoke with some of the Good Samaritans who helped immediately. One couple I talked to said they'd seen this driver on the road for 50 miles, swerving in and out, running people off the road. From a parent perspective, when you hear that, and you could just talk a little bit about, I guess, what happened and how your children are recovering. If you're not comfortable, that's okay. If somebody else wants to talk, that's fine. But
I'll talk.
just introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Sure. Carl DeCuna, Karl d'Unha. My son's name is Chris, Kris. Luckily, my son wasn't too badly hurt, but he was one of the boys that had his phone and called, when it happened. So like when he said we were all in the dinner, scenario room, just taking our orders. We were all like having a good time, and my son, who never really calls me, especially in a hockey tournament, is ringing my phone, and I was like, "Chris, what's wrong?" And he says, "Dad, we got hit by a truck." So I put it on speaker. Well, first I said, everyone in the room, I said, "Shut up!" And everyone was quiet. I put it on speaker. I said, "Chris, tell me again what you just said." And he said, "Dad, we've been hit by a truck. A lot of people are hurt." And like when he said, that's when everyone just like jumped up and ran to the exits and went to their cars and then didn't know where to go. Like go to the site, go to the hospital. We don't know which hospital. By the time we got to the hospital, a lot of the boys were already in the ER, like in the separate rooms. Your boy and the other two boys that are really hurt had to be sent to Fort Wayne because they might have needed surgery. It was like a war zone. You had these boys that are crying and shaking in this like kind of like a pantry. And then I saw the cops bringing this guy, with handcuffed, red eyes, like cold, robotic, as if nothing had happened. And I didn't know, like I was tending to one of the boys, but I looked. But then it clicked to me. I was like, that's the guy. And to share everyone's feelings, we want this guy put away for a long time. He should never have been put on the road. And I just can't believe it.
That phone call when your son was calling you, it sounds like there wasn't a lot of thinking. Everyone just jumped.
It was like a knee-jerk reaction. Everyone just like got up, ran to the door, and then went to the cars. Because I just remember this on speaker. It just echoed through the room. "Dad, they're really hurt." I mean, which parent ever wants to hear that phone call?
What was your son doing? Because from what I understand, at that point, they maybe thought that they had lost some of their teammates. That's what's
There was a little bit of confusion because especially when the three boys got I think one of the boys might have gone to the initial hospital and then got transported to Fort Wayne, but I think the other two boys went straight to Fort Wayne because they were so badly hurt. I mean, when I got to the hospital, found my boy. I said, "Chris, are you okay?" He said, "Dad, I'm fine." He said, "How's LJ?" So I was like, "I don't know. He's at the other hospital." He said, "Dad, LJ was covered in blood and screaming, 'I'm gonna die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die.'" So to answer your question, so my son's a pretty tough kid, and but how about weeks from now when he has to revisit that memory? What do you say?
Can you tell me, what do your boys think about this action that all of you are taking? What does it mean to you as parents to show them that you're doing this?
I mean, I know for us, we're trying to keep them away from this because they have so much on their plate right now, and I don't think either one they won't understand the full extent of it till they're older. But I know as parents, we're unified. You know, we all want to do what's best for our kids.
Any other questions? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any way you could point out which children that you spoke?
I want to bring
Yeah.
it up there.
Oh, yeah, my son's not in this one.
Yeah. That picture was.
Oh, no, he is. He is.
Yeah, he's
I'm
just,
sorry.
I can't, it's hard to see.
Yeah, he is.
That picture
Yeah, I
was.
can show you.
Yeah, why don't you?
Yeah.
That picture was taken at the
So he's
hotel.
back there. He's the little smallest guy on the team. Yeah, yeah.
You want to
That's
point
my
out
guy.
Yeah,
Alex?
he's up there. This is Chris, Carl's son, and then Alex is right here, right, Wendy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Alex.
Okay, so this is Wendy's,
Okay.
and
That's
this is
Jack. Yeah.
and your son is,
Chris
Is
right there.
Chris.
And there's Emmett.
Yeah, and Emmett. Yeah.
And this bus, this picture was taken at the hotel before they went to go play the game that night.
Yeah.
And I understand, I don't want to say his name because the family wants to be private, right, about this?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
understood.
yeah.
Photo of the
Thank you.
accident site, can you point out which photo?
Yeah. Why don't we bring that over?
Yeah, we'll bring this over. So Wendy and Jeff, can you just tell us which one is which?
This is Alex right
Here,
here.
why don't I hold it up? I'll hold it up right here.
This is Alex, this is Jack. So this is, until I saw this today, I didn't really understand how Alex heard the screams, knew the screams, or, was, so, that was the one boy he kept asking about, but clearly I know now why.
Which one's Alex, which one's Jack?
This is Alex.
And this is Jack.
Must be hard to see this.
Yes.
Yeah, I hadn't
It's
seen
really
that
hard.
picture until
I
I
haven't,
arrived
yeah.
here, so, yeah.
That picture at your feet, those are the boys praying immediately afterwards when they thought that they might have lost some of their teeth.
With one of the bystanders you probably talked to.
That's immediately after the
The
snap.
woman in the red coat. And didn't you tell me her name was Faith?
I think it's me.
I mean, it was truly a miracle that these boys survived, and I think although I don't know if any of us will be able to really watch the video, I think because there's a video of the accident actually right when it happened, I think if we see how close it could have been to a completely different outcome, it'll be too close for any of us to really be able to look at that.
Did the semi have video in the back? The bus?
I don't think we know that yet, but we're going to get a subpoena out to the state's attorney and to the police department. But we know there was surveillance video of the actual crash.
I need it one more time.
For the names,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Okay.
Which one's Chris?
That guy there.
This one?
Yeah.
This, okay.
Maybe I'll just,
I'm going with this, yeah.
I might borrow that, that's okay.
Yeah, it's
Oh, yes.
K-R-I-S.
K-R-I-S, yeah.
Yeah,
Chris, okay.
yeah.
This hat?
Hat is Jack. Yeah.
You're still
Okay,
wearing
sorry.
that.
That's okay.
This is,
Emmett,
Emmett?
Double M.
E-T-T.
And there was one more.
Alex.
Alex right here.
Alex. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. The mics are still on. Oh, sure. Sure.
I have a hot mic.